the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardhan Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Haribo. We are discussing the subtle body, and it said that consists of 8 aspects, and that's why it's called 8, is considered as a precious, and that defines the jiva. And still it is a matter because it's made up of subtle elements, and it has, since it's a part of the prakriti that we'll discuss, and it is trigunatmakam, and all that will come back into the guna aspect of it. This subtle body is also called linga sariram. We have the sthula sariram, gross body, sukshma sariram, subtle body, and we have a karana sariram, causal body. 3 bodies. In the waking state, all 3 are involved in some aspect, but predominantly identification with the gross body is there. That is the sthula sariram. In the subtle body, we have the sukshma sariram. In the dream state, we have only the sukshma sariram, and if you go to deep sleep state, even the sukshma sariram is folded, only karana sariram, causal body. Why they are called, we will discuss also. But in the analysis of the sukshma sariram, we also should know that it's also called linga sariram. Linga sariram, linga means that which reminds us something else. Lingyate iti, anena iti lingam. Says that which reminds us something else. So what does it remind? That's what lingam also, the Shiva lingam, it is reminding us of Lord Shiva. Shiva means auspiciousness. Auspiciousness is that which is always pure, and that which is always pure is infinite, because there cannot be impurity in the infinite, and therefore that Shivam is the pure auspicious Shivam, is being reminded by this lingam. That's called Shiva lingam. And here the Sukshma Sariram is also reminding us of something else. So what does it remind? It reminds of that which enlivens this one. And what is enlivening means? All that we need to analyze a little bit. So the Sukshma Sariram, we said, is available during the dream state, and in the deep sleep state, even the Sukshma Sariram is folded. So each Sariram or each state is associated with a particular Sariram predominantly, and that also we need to understand, because we want to find out what is Anatma so that we can discover what is Atma, because Atma is something different from Anatma. Means not, non-self, therefore self is not non-self. Because non-self only we can analyze objectively, and the self cannot be analyzed therefore because it's not an object. So we have to discover the self by rejecting not self, because these two occur together. That is what the whole problem is. Now we are addressing linga sariram. It is reminding us something else. What is reminding? What makes the jiva? All these aspects will be analyzed exhaustively later, but for the time being, we should have some idea of what we are talking about. So, that which remains me is Atma. What my Atma? It's consciousness. That, according to the scriptures that we went through, analysis of what was there before creation, is that which is pure, existent, of the nature of consciousness, and itself became many. And in the process of becoming many, it formed first subtle elements and then the gross elements. Subtle elements form subtle body, and the gross elements form gross body. All this is implied now. So this subtle body is reminding us of something other than it through it, it is remaining something which is what is called Atma. So how does it remain Atma? So that we need to know. So now this matter is inert, even the subtle matter is still inert. So where is the consciousness come into picture? Consciousness doesn't come because we said consciousness, for it coming or not coming, it has to be finite. But consciousness, existence, which is nature of Brahman, and it is infiniteness. So it cannot come or go. So it is always there. But it as though appearing as 5 elements and so on. Therefore, it is a creationless creation, just as gold as though appearing in terms of rings and a bangle and a necklace. This is what the Vedanta gives an example and illustrates how the so-called transformationless transformation has taken place. What is the cause for this transformationless transformation? Also we will be knowing. But in the first place we should know that consciousness is all pervading. But depending upon the instrument that we are dealing with, the consciousness can get reflected because it's a light of consciousness, and since it is a jyoti as though shining, and it gets reflected depending upon the medium of reflection, just as the sunlight gets reflected depending on the medium of reflection. If it is a pure mirror, shining mirror, sunlight gets completely reflected. If it is a dull mirror, the reflection will be dull. And if it is a gross, inert, a stone or something, reflection will be the same time. It reflects, but it doesn't reflect in all its glory. All this that we are familiar. So in this also, how Atma appears as many is what is discussed, is a part of understanding where lingam, it is reminding us something other than what it is. That has to be understood. Here we are talking about all-pervading Atma. From all-pervading Atma, there is no creation also, because it is infinite, and infinite has nothing there, because no distortion or no perturbation can occur in the infinite, because it is infinite. So here we are talking about a factor that makes it appear as though it is. So there is something that brings in, and that's what is called Maya. So going to Maya a little bit as soon as we finish a little bit, but that aspect is also being discussed here. So there is a factor that makes one appearing as many. So we said there is a change of state, or even an appearance, saying there is an apparent change of state. So there has to be an apparent force that contributes to change of state. And this apparent force is called Maya, because it is not really there, but since there is an appearance and one appearing as many, therefore there is an apparent force has to be brought in, even though I don't see a force. Because I say, I want to see Maya, you cannot see the Maya. Even when an object moves from one place to other place, that's what in the physics says, say when an object is moving from a place A and place B, there must be a force, and because there is a change of position. I don't see a force. Doesn't matter, because of the change of state involves a driving force. Driving force is implied in the change of state. Similarly, one appearing as many, there has to be a driving force, and that is called Maya. Now, pure consciousness appearing as many is illustrated as Bimba Pratibimba Vada. So, we have a phone call, excuse me. Sorry for the interruption, and this is our taping at home. But here the analysis of the consciousness and the jiva has to be understood here. So when this is called Bimba Pratibimba Vada, it is original and reflection, and this is the type of analogy is used to explain one consciousness appearing as many. And the other example also used by Gaudapada in the Mandukya Karika is essentially Ghatakasha and Mahakasha, the pot space and the total space. This is also being utilized depending upon how we explain this. But Pratibhimbavada is much more logical and scientifically easily understandable, and we will use that for most of our analysis. So what is the way? The total consciousness is all pervading. It is the nature of the Jyoti. Jyoti means it's a light of consciousness, because it illumines, and because of that only I know everything. In that pure consciousness that is illumining, when it gets reflected by the Upadhi, Upadhi means instrument, then that reflection also becomes as though shining. It is like, simple example is, sunlight is there, and in the full moon night, when I look at it, the moon is shining. The moon is shining not because it has its own capacity to shine, but it's because of reflection of the sunlight there. And we have brought it two aspects of it. Sunlight is there where the moon is, and it is getting reflected by the moon, and the reflected light is what we are seeing as a moonlight. We think the moon is giving a light, and in the moonlight we say we are seeing things, but moon doesn't have any light of its own. It is an inert thing. Therefore the light is coming from the sun, which is reflected here. In the same fashion, we have the subtle body. Subtle body has the capacity to reflect in all its glory the light of consciousness that is there. Light of consciousness is everywhere. So when the light of consciousness, as though, quote unquote, falls on the subtle body, it reflects. And the reflection depends upon the reflecting medium and not the light. Light is the same. But same light falling on a subtle body, a shining mirror, different from a dull mirror. So even though same sunlight is falling on the two mirrors, one is a shining mirror, another is a dull mirror. The shining mirror reflects with all beauty and all its glory the light back, whereas the dull mirror, even though it reflects still, but it's not that bright. So therefore the reflection depends upon the reflecting medium, because the original source is the same. There is no distinctions and differentiations in that original, because it says sajati vidati swagada beda rahitam. There is no differentiation of any kind in the pure consciousness. It is pure, unadulterated. So it's called prajnana ghanam, means dense consciousness alone. But it gets reflected. But when it reflected by the subtle body as though becoming a conscious entity, just as the moon is as though becoming a luminous body. In the same way, the subtle body, depending upon the reflection, it also becomes a luminous. That means it becomes a conscious body. So now consciousness is not the original consciousness, just that the moonlight is not the original light of the moon. There is no original light for the moon, it's only reflected light. So when I look at the moon, what am I looking at? Hey, moon is shining. But moon is not only doesn't shine by itself, it is sunlight. Not only that, what I am seeing is not even a moon, but I am only seeing the sunlight only, because it is the light that is coming back after reflection from the moon. Moon is still there, and moon doesn't have its own light. The sunlight that is falling on the moon getting reflected and reaching back to me, to my eyes, and what I am seeing is not the moon, but the sunlight only. These are all very important analysis that we have to understand. Same, that light that is coming the moon, if it falls on the object outside and then get reflected further and come back to my eyes, and I see an object in the moonlight, and I say I am seeing an object here because the moon is shining. So I am seeing the object, but I am seeing because that object is reflecting the moonlight, and I am seeing all that is because of sunlight. So what I am seeing is the sunlight going to the moon as though getting reflected and falling on the object, getting further reflected from the object and coming to my retina. So what I am seeing is only a sunlight through the object, which is coming again through the moon and which is originally from the sun. All that is implied, and we don't think all that, but we think, oh, we are seeing the objects because of the moonlight. Same process occurs in the perception also. This will bring it back, where the reflection of the pure consciousness first reflected on the mind, reflected by the mind, and the reflected light falls on the thoughts that are arising in the mind and get reflected back to the mind. That's what the knowledge is. We'll come back to this more detail, but this is what essentially the process of Bimba Pratibimbavada, where when I am looking at the object in the moonlight on a full moon night, and I have to recognize or see what I am seeing is only sunlight. That becomes a meditation. I am not looking at the object, I am not looking at the moonlight, but I am actually looking at the sunlight via moon and falling on the object and looking into my eyes. So looking that object, recognize that it is sunlight I am seeing, becomes a meditation. Same way, looking at the thought, and it's not the thought that I am seeing, it's a reflected light of consciousness originally falling on the mind, reflected by the mind, and the reflected light falls on the thought and getting reflected back, and say I am seeing the thought. See, all these things are part of the Vedanta and part of the science also. So how does the mind became conscious entity is being analyzed. So the mind itself is called a reflecting medium. It's just inert, but it gains as though consciousness by the reflection process. The reflection of the total consciousness as though falling on the mind, getting reflected. I'm using a mind in general. It starts from the buddhi, and from the buddhi to the emotional mind, and from the mind it ripples down to the sthula sarira also. All that is involved. This is just pure consciousness as though getting activating the mind as a conscious entity now. The consciousness that I say I am is not really original consciousness, but that's only reflected consciousness. Reflection depends upon the reflecting medium. Right? All these things are important. So some people are bright, some people are dull, is not because of pure consciousness, it's because of the reflecting medium, the varieties in the reflecting medium. In the same way, the reflected consciousness ripples through from the mind, from the subtle body to the gross body, because the subtle body is contained within the gross body, the mind is within the brain, and therefore we are talking about that consciousness which is getting reflected by the subtle body and now ripples down to the gross body, and the gross body also becomes conscious as though and performing all the activities. Therefore I can lift my hand, I can blink, all the digestive process, everything is going on, all that we discuss, prana, pana, vyana, everything is coming from the subtle body, manifesting through this gross body. So activities, once the subtle body leaves the gross body, the gross body becomes a dead matter and cannot do anything, and it starts in fact stinking. Say, bharya bibyati tasmin kai. Once the breath has gone, the deterioration starts, and even the wife also doesn't like the body, or to get rid of that body. So this process has to be understood. So what exactly is a jiva comes into picture. First we understand the total consciousness is all pervading, that is reflected by a reflecting medium, and mind forms a reflecting medium, and that reflecting medium gets enlivened as though, and that becomes a conscious entity because of the reflection. So it is the reflected consciousness that is manifesting in the mind, that is further manifested in the part of the physical body. all that is involved in terms of what is life. Now, what exactly is the life? Life is nothing but activation of this subtle body through the reflection process. So it became a conscious entity because of the reflection. As long as there is a subtle body involved, reflection is beautiful. If there is no subtle body, the matter only exists. Therefore, the pure existent consciousness only manifests as existence only, but not as a conscious entity. So same consciousness, all pervading existent consciousness, expressing itself in varieties of names and forms through reflection processes, and the reflection depends upon the reflecting medium. If there is a subtle body, then it is expresses as the life, and if there is no subtle body, it expresses as pure existence without having any consciousness in it, because the consciousness is not getting reflected in the inert body. So body doesn't know, but because of the subtle mind, mind can know. Now we go with this in terms of a little bit of what exactly Upadi means and what exactly means Upahita Chaitanya, or reflected consciousness, and that's called Chidabhasa, and what is meant by Jiva. And then we can analyze what is the Lingate, that which indicates something other than itself, and what is that Atma. All that we will analyze in the next talk slowly. We'll do here. Shanti part. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.